And the first thing I want to do is thank Steve Hinnefeld for what I think is 5 years as president.
Yes.
During which he almost single-handedly kept the club going through the pandemic and has done so much behind the scenes that you all aren't aware of. He's more than paid his dues. So, and then other members of the board are Ryan Gunterman is the secretary, Betsy Trotsky is the vice president, and Michael Bird and Barbara is the treasurer. She's not here today. She's on Zoom. And then Jim Bright is on the board, Jack Dvorak, Michael Reschke. So there are a bunch of us working on things behind the scenes, and we have been very busy, a lot busier than usual. Before I go any further, do we have guests today?
Pleased to have with us today Joe Myers and Kathy Crossan of Myers Crossan Communications. Joe, by the way, is a former board member of this organization.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and I think some recent research showed that we used to meet at Poplars. Is that right?
Oh my.
Yeah, okay. But we started meeting here apparently around 1990. And Joe has a photograph, it's wonderful, of 6 board members from the 90s, mid-90s, I think. He is in the photo along with Suzanne Owen and Pat Siddons, and 3 people were kind of scratching their head on.
Well, I kind of remember who they are, but it's not
But anyway, terrific candidates. In fact, they just dropped off a check for the membership. So, Joe and Kathy.
Any other guests?
Oh, I guess Carol's a member, or going to be a member, but yes, a guest today.
Yeah.
She works with me at the Herald Times, for those of you who don't recognize me, I'm Jill Bond. So, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? So you should have received in your inbox a survey. I have 40 responses so far. I'd like to get more. I have paper copies today. If anybody wants to fill those out instead, just let me know. Some of you have already done that. It's going to help us with some changes that are going to be happening. So please do fill that out. Dues, if you have not paid your dues, if you know anybody who hasn't paid their dues, we are down 40% in our membership from last year. And this makes a huge difference to our scholarship and internship program. We have a small fund at the IU Foundation. Whatever dividend we get from that, the foundation lets us know every year how much we can spend. The rest of it we make up from our tiny checking account with dues. So we really, really need to get the membership back up. So if you know people who you think might want to join, or people who were members and they're not, then please give them a thread. Okay, so the big thing is that unfortunately this is our last meeting in this room. The tutor room has a new policy that requires us to guarantee a minimum of 35 lunches. So if we have 20 people come, like today, we would have to pay for 15 lunches, and we can't. So we have been looking for the last few weeks at a variety of venues. Some of them are downtown, which raises a parking issue. Some of them are not downtown, which means parking, but maybe a bit further to travel. They're not on campus. We're not going to be on campus anymore. It's going to work out better for some people and worse for others. And the survey is going to help us decide what we want to do. So we will let you know where our March meeting will be, but it will no longer be here. So, and our last thing, our next meeting is March 26th and that will be with Julie Beasley and Brad Fulton from the from SPEAR with the Observing Civic Engagement Lab, and they have had a representative here at our meetings for the last several meetings, right, since the fall at least. So they're going to be coming in explaining their project to us. In April, we have Forrest Gilmore from Beacon, and that is where our intern is this year, Daniela Richardson. She will be here also to tell us about her work with Beacon. So, any questions? Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Jay Kincaid. Jay is my former colleague from the media school, where he's on the faculty. He is the director of facilities and technology, and as if he didn't have enough to do, he has been made interim executive director of radio television services, which incorporates WTIU and WFIU. Jay is from Bloomington. He had a big career in New York City. I think I mentioned in the invitation that he still goes to New York on a regular basis to direct CBS major sports coverage, football. He'll be helping direct Final Four, or produce, I should say, or direct. Yes, sorry. And he has 10 national Emmys. He's amazing. I want him to talk about radio TV today, but if we have time, we can also ask him about his sports.
Oh, thank you, everyone. So as Ann said, I am Jay Kincaid, and I have several hats that I've been wearing. And so I'll briefly just go over a few of them, and then feel free to ask me questions at any point. So I am from Bloomington. I went to Bloomington North. Great day to be a Cougar. And then I went to IU. I graduated here in early 80s, and went straight to New York. I've started off at NBC as an intern in Philadelphia, and then after that, they offered me a position to stay at actually WHYY in Philadelphia, but I decided I should probably come back and finish a degree here at IU. And so I came back, and I went immediately, kept working at NBC as a runner, and traveled kind of all over the country for quite a while. Then after that, I graduated and moved directly to New York, and lived there for about 19 years. I worked for NBC for most of it. Then I went to work at CNBC as a director. So what happened, I was in the Olympic unit in 1988, and we were in Seoul. And then ABC got the next Olympic contract. And so we were out of a job, and they said, so if you don't want to be out of a job, you go over to Fort Lee, New Jersey, and you can start CNBC. And everybody said, what's financial news? Nobody really knew what financial news was. And, and so as soon as we started there, it was when the Exxon Valdez sprung a leak, and with a drunken captain. And that's how we got on the air, was covering the same oily seal for a very, very long time. And then our competition was with Bloomberg, and they decided if you couldn't compete, they would just buy them. And so it's kind of a long story, but I started at CNBC, but then I also continued to freelance. And I consider myself, more of a professional freelancer. And that's what I do. Directing is what I love to do. Administrating is not my favorite thing to do. Working with students is pretty awesome, but solving problems and getting things together is all kind of a skill set. I'm a live television director, and so what's really nice is all the planning goes up front, then tick, 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 you're on the air, and then suddenly it's over, you're done. In administration, it's never done. In running anything, it's never done. Everybody wants to talk about it, and so I've been accused by a lot of people that I'm impatient, that trying to get things done immediately, because that's the way that I've that's the way my brain works. You got to get it done, and then you just move on to the next problem or the next gig. So I lived in New York for, I was married, am married, and my father passed away. We grew up on a farm west of town. My dad died in a farm accident, and so I came back to my dad's wake, and Keith Klein, most of you, I don't know if you remember Keith Klein and Mickey Klein and a lot of people that I worked for at WTIU, came to my dad's wake, and he said, "Hey, so-and-so is retiring. You should come back and work at radio and TV." And I thought, I don't know about that. I was doing a lot of work at Saturday Night Live at that point. The director was getting ready to retire. And I thought, I was kind of in line. Maybe I got a shot. I could work at Saturday Night Live. I get out of the sports field, get into the entertainment field. But that's not the way it worked out. So I came back to Bloomington 25 years, in 1999. Came back to Bloomington. Thought my career was dead in the water. Went to work at radio and TV. And I thought my New York career was going to be just absolutely dead in the water. And then I would be making $38,000, trying to raise 5 kids and run a farm at the same time. That didn't really work. Immediately when I came back, I worked for the NBA Entertainment, and they immediately said, "Well, we'll see you Friday." And I said, "I don't live here anymore." And they said, "No, you need to come back. We want to keep." And that's where it began. 40 weekends a year, I would fly back to New York. 42, I think, was the most. I got it down to about 25 weekends, 26 weekends now. NFL season's pretty bad. It's every weekend. I fly out on Saturday, come back on Sunday, do a show for them, and then come back. I've done it for 25 years, 25 years, and I don't know how many trips. But in that whole thing, which made me realize that freelancing was a way to do something I really loved. And being in Bloomington and taking care of working with my mom and raising my kids here and working at radio and TV was really a fantastic life. So then, as life will have it, the media school was formed, and I was asked by Gene Robinson if I would be willing to come over and do the facilities and the technology part of it. And that's how I got started in the media school in administration. And I thought that I was the biggest fraud that ever set foot in that building. I knew nothing about, I was a TV director. I didn't know anything about, I knew a lot about technology. I knew nothing about faculty. Wow, that was really interesting to start interacting with faculty and being a faculty person as myself. It was an eye-opening experience. But bringing 3 groups together that didn't really want to be together under one building or 2 buildings, it took several years. Jim can tell you, and Teresa can tell you, it was an interesting time. And Ann can tell you, yeah, she rode the wave with us. So. And so it's been great. We're all together. Our oars are all in the same, or at least they're in the water now. They're kind of in the same direction for the most part, and it's great. And then in October, I went over to, if I wasn't busy enough, Rahul asked me if I would be willing to take over as the interim director, which I find interesting. I'll tell this group 10 hours a week, because that's really all they needed was about 10 hours a week of my time at radio and TV. If I would go over there for a year, and I said, "Oh, that would be great." I don't think it's going to be 10 hours a week. I think it's going to be more like 40 hours a week, and how to divide this up. And so since really early September, I've been working with a lot of great people at radio and TV, and just trying to figure things out. And I have a lot of colleagues that have steered me in the right direction. And so that kind of brings me where I am right now. And then after the election, working in public broadcasting is not an easy place to be. So that's what we're all trying to figure out right now. I think that's our goal, and that's what we're figuring out. What I will say about radio and television, and then I'll jump around some more, is that there are really very talented people and really creative people, and they do a lot of really great things. Our news department, Sarah Whitmire, Joe Wren, Bob Salzberg, Perry, everybody that's over there they do just a wonderful job, and that's not going to change. They will continue to fight the good fight and keep fiercely independent and representing South Central Indiana. Our documentaries are fabulous. Todd Gould, Jason Pear, they are doing great things. Their collaborations with the Jacob School of Music is great. I had a meeting with Abra Bush, and she is so happy with the last thing that we did with Nutcracker. She wants to start planning out what are we going to do in 2026? What are we going to do in 2027? We want more and more and more. We want to work. It was so great. And they have so many great projects on the horizon. And so, I only see more and more collaboration with other departments on campus. So that is, to make this even a little more complicated, is that in the media school, so the provost office decided that they were kind of out of the radio and TV business, not because they were trying to align. They're in the education business, and they're trying to push departments into where they fit. And so the media school was a really good fit in the provost size and in where radio TV reporting lines. So we have this collaboration together that is, it's like an awkward dating dance. It's kind of reminds us of, I was telling Teresa, the early days in the media school. Everybody's kind of unsure of everybody's intentions, and so we're trying to navigate those waters as we go forward, working together. And then on top of all that, we have contracts that we have to work out with the athletic department and with the campus. So there's a lot going on. There's just a lot going on in each one of these departments. So what I will say about the federal funding, and Amy, please can jump in and correct me, because I think we can all agree that it's not going to be business as usual. Is the sky falling? I said, my kind of classic answer to this is the sky falling. I say, yeah. The question is, how fast is it falling? Do we start? Is it dropping all around us? Our federal monies are about 13% of our income. It's not insurmountable, and so we have to position ourselves. Just assume that money is not going to be there. And so we do these drills. If we have to find 15%, where can we find this 15%? Amy's done an amazing job raising money from donors and contributing to what we do with the foundation. But the next step is, how can we do more with less? How can we not sacrifice our programming as we go forward? And I think that's our challenge. That's what we're working on right now. We have no plans. I mean, we're kind of in a wait and see mode at this point. What's going to happen? Where do we start? What do we need to do to better prepare ourselves? Well, what I will say was that is the more we're prepared, we align ourselves with the university. And you can see the mission statement. I think most of you have the mission statement. So the mission statement came, if the mission statement is a combination of the university's mission statement, a combination of radio and TV's mission statement from days gone by, and from the media school's mission statement. And we ran this through the community, to the community board, through the media school and through radio and TV. And we kind of landed on what of what our mission is. And we are aligning ourselves with the university, but we've always been aligned with the university. We've always had students, as far as I go back, I was a student that worked in radio and TV. There, I would say, when I was there, 70% of the workforce were students. You know, students across campus, mostly from telecommunications. So that hasn't changed. We've just kind of formalized this deal, you know, with the media school. So there's more academic classes that are taking place. We just formalized the arrangement, I think is the best way to say. So and we still do everything that you know, we still stream all the commencements, all of the speaker series, the Arnold Center, to every sporting event. We do 250 events on this campus. About 150 athletic events that we stream for either the screen or for Big Ten or Big Ten Plus. And then we do all the graduations in the state, and then we consult on a lot of other projects as well. So we're just, I think in the past, under Perry's guidance, we were very, very strong in our alignment with the university and where people recognized the necessity of radio and TV services. COVID kind of pushed us away from that mission and then we're here. My main goal to October, well, other than to find my replacement, is to get back on track of what we do best, get our studios up and running, do more shows in our studio, do more, and enhance what we do and do well. And that's really kind of where we are. So what did I leave out? Who's got a question? I can tell you kind of what's on that. Yes, Charlotte. Yeah.
I think passport is a gold mine. I'm going to take advantage of it. The other day, I decided to start with the
Yeah.
and it's wonderful. I mean, wonderful photos that can and that's just a few of it. Is there some way you can capitalize on that?
Of the archive stuff? Yeah. So the question is about archiving and going back to the gold mine of what PBS has. And I think there's always licensing rights and things like that. But I think you'll start to see more and more of things from the archives and where you can find those on most of those on PBS Passport, right?
And Charlotte, you make a good point because that is our largest. I'm the development director at the station, so I'm letting Jay do this presentation, but it is our largest source of new members. And it is a little bit different because the value proposition is, for some Passport viewers, a bit more transactional than the typical PBS donor who's like, you know, all this programming is funded by viewers like you. But we and many other PBS stations have found that people's interest in access to Passport is a big driver, specifically of new membership to the station. So we're trying to navigate how to best communicate specifically with Passport donors because not all of them watch linear broadcast television. So figuring out the best way to serve them and, you know, steward them as donors is something interesting. But we wish the Passport threshold was a little bit higher than it is. PBS sets it nationally at $60 a year or $5 a month for access to all the PBS archives, which is a wonderful resource. But normally we wouldn't make an ask for less than $100.
Right.
But we are in the sense that that's the, you know, if folks come in at that level, that's what they need to do to have access to PBS Passport.
Right. Yeah. So one of the other things that we're working on, one of the other initiatives, so there's five channels at WTIU. There's a fifth channel that's basically just sits out there that is it Create? It's one of the channels that is just a strict pass-through. And I think what we're trying to do, what we're working on, is making that an IU channel. And so what we would like to do with that is take student works lectures, things that we can get rights to, things that necessarily you wouldn't want to put on WTIU, but might live on this channel, right? So it might be a class. It might be Bruce and Bonnie's archives of past, what was it called? The
Oral history.
yeah, the oral histories. I mean, you have 5-6 years that were shot in our studio of oral history from all sorts of places. We'll have some live programming. We'll have, the plan is on putting on hockey, you know, IU hockey, field lacrosse, rugby, things that you'll never see anywhere else, but other people might want to see those. But also really trying to populate that channel that celebrates all things IU. You know, so maybe that's where you would find the state of the university. Maybe that's where you would find other things as well. So we're really trying to work on utilizing kind of the assets that we have and maybe creating programming for those channels as well. But a big part of that will be student produced. We are starting in the fall. We are doing it's called a fly pack system. It's basically a portable studio, and we will take it out to venues so we can populate, so we can see rugby, or down to Frank Southern to see hockey, or take it over to theater to see something at theater or something at Jacobs. Put us a little more mobile than what we're going to do, but that'll all be curriculum based and that'll all be student based. And so we have the funding for that we pulled together, and that's with the media school. It'll be in conjunction with radio and TV services, but the breadth of that, the monies for that has all come from the media school, and we're building curriculum around that. So I think that's really exciting and really important, and it will benefit both. It'll benefit both organizations at the same time. So that's some of the things that we are working on. What other questions can I answer? Yeah, Bruce.
I want to talk a little bit about university financial support for the station, both its stability and trend.
Yeah.
And is there any hesitation, administration, of what you cover as relate to, say, the university administration?
So the percentage of our funding, a large percentage of our funding comes from the university, right? Our lights are on, our building is on, but there is a firewall. You know, in my knowledge, there's never been from the administration a phone call that came over that said, do not cover that, do not do that, don't do that. And if they did, we would do it anyway, because that's in our charter. I mean, that's what we stand for. We are understood by the university that we're an independent newsroom, and that we will continue to cover the university as we'll continue to cover anything else in Bloomington. And so we've never got any pushback. There was just a FOIA request for some records from Brian Hall. I don't think it went very well, but they're still out there asking for it. So I don't worry about that, Bruce. I don't think our funding will be hurt. What I do worry where our funding could be hurt is just like it is in Washington, it could be cut at the state level. You know, we could be right now. So we're just kind of waiting to see, right? I mean, it's kind of a triple witch. You know, what's going to happen? You know, going to get cut at the federal level, or going to get cut at the state level? Are we going to? And if the state level gets cut, that means the university gets cut. Will we get cut at the university level as well? I don't know. It's interesting times. But if you go back to the Newt Gingrich times, this is not unfamiliar times. We've actually had to lay people off during the Newt Gingrich period. So this isn't really new territory for public television and public radio. You know, we've come under that federal guideline, that federal scope before, and we weathered the storm, right? So I hope that's the case, that we're going to do, that it's going to continue on. So, yeah.
Yeah, Jay, can you speak to your current building over there, the radio TV building?
Yeah.
I was a student. That's how old that building is. But I was a student over there. But you know, are you about to vacate that for new digs?
No.
And
So
does it have the technology, the tools that you and your team need to continue to put out a good product?
Yeah. So let me talk about RTV and the building itself. So the one thing I can honestly say that the one thing that I understand is technology and infrastructure, kind of by default. We can put out a really quality product. First of all, we have the talent. You know, we have the staffing and the talent, the storytellers, everything that we need to do that. We have the equipment. We have 4K equipment throughout the building, HD equipment. Honestly, so we're doing very well with the talent and the equipment, with the money that gets funded for these programs. That I don't worry about. Studio 6 is really long in the tooth. The technology is not, but the infrastructure of Studio 6, and for those of you who've been there before, it's undergoing a renovation of sorts. So it will stay the same, but it will have new lights, new low voltage lights. So the heat loads will be way down, the power usage will be way down. The floors, the grids, the battens will all be refurbished. The power will be all redone in there. And we'll be getting a new set for WTIU. WFIU will also be getting a new set that'll set in one end. And the other end of it, so Studio 6 is now home of the Kicks Lab, which is an initiative through the university, which is really an innovative lab that they are kind of an experimental place where there'll be a 24-foot by 12-foot Sony crystal wall that goes in there, that there will be performances in front of, that'll all make, it will make our programming better. Visually, it'll make it better. We'll work with them. The studio, though, will be scheduled. It'll be a scheduled space. So we just can't walk down there and do it anymore, right? So the one thing that I have learned about the university as it continues to grow, that you cannot be territorial about your spaces. So for those, those that you remember Studio 5, the shop. Remember the shop that's back there. That is now, we've lost that, and that is now going to Eskenazi as a makerspace. But we were able to go with that makerspace and still get the things. We've stopped manufacturing, right? We don't build sets anymore. It's been a long time. We don't do that anymore. So what we've done with the makerspace and with Eskenazi, we can have them design and build us anything we want without having that space on our books. So it will be, instead of being a storage room, which is really what it's become, a 2,500 square foot storage room, will become a vibrant shop again. And that's good. So those kind of collaborations with the university, with Eskenazi. So the same thing with Studio 6. Studio 6, what happened is that during COVID, it was underutilized. It did Indiana News Desk, which takes about 2.5 hours a week. You can't keep a 4,500 square foot space. You're going to lose it. I mean, so being able to negotiate with, if you take Studio 6, we still need part of Studio 6, and we want to utilize what you're putting in that end. So collaborating to design that space together, we've lost, but we've won, and I think that's something we need to remember. Same thing with losing the shop. We've also gained an active makerspace, and we'll see a lot of Eskenazi students in our halls working. And so those are the kind of things, it's all how you look at it. Did we lose it or did we gain it? And I say that our losses are also our gains. We're doing well. And so I think, can I say that 5 years from now that space will still be radio and TV or the Kicks Lab? It could be the chemistry department. It could be Kelly. Who knows? I think the important thing to know is that we don't own anything. We own nothing. We claim it, but we don't own it. That square footage is owned by Indiana University. And that's what every square inch of this place. And so people get very territorial, like, you can't take my office. Well, it's not your office. It's Indiana University's office. And so it's better to go into these things as a collaborator. And I have a really good relationship with the architect's office, with Tom Morrison, who's leaving to go to Duke, but with Adam Teese, who's staying. And so those are the things that we can celebrate, is those relationships. This job is mostly about knowing, which Perry did a wonderful job. He knows everybody at the university, right? And so if you take that guidance, what Perry knows, I know about this much of what Perry knows about that much. And I think what happened was, if you don't embrace this university, if you don't embrace the knowledge, the institutional knowledge that's out there, you will lose. So you have to figure out where you fit into all these puzzle pieces. So that's what I enjoy, and coming up with these kind of things. Did that answer? Yeah.
Yeah. Where in the world are we going to find somebody to fill your shoes?
Oh, there'll be somebody. I think there's probably somebody that's sitting on that in that staff right now. There are so many talented people there that can do the job, and I think what gets overlooked is that going back to relationships and institutional knowledge. I think it gets lost, because I think what happens that you get these search committees that think that there's something out there that's going to make this elevate even higher. And what I say is that there's people right here that, given the time and the knowledge, because anybody that you bring in from the outside, you're going to hit the reset button. It's going to take a year. How does purchasing work? What are all these acronyms mean? Where's this building? Who's Bruce Jaffe? Who are all these people that we need to know? So, and Bonnie, but there's institutional knowledge that comes with that, right? And I think if you have those people that are sitting in that building that can do an excellent job, and I just think it's not always greener outside the gates of the university, but there's a lot of talent that sits, that I work with every day, that I'm extremely, but it makes me look good, because I'm a dope when it comes to a lot of this stuff. Yeah.
So I appreciate what you've said about institutional knowledge. Is there a search committee?
Oh, yeah.
And if so, are you on it, or do they listen to you? Because you could be overruled by.
Oh, sure, yeah. And it's a good chance, right? So, so the search will start. So starting in March, if you work backwards, so I know that my last day here is Halloween, right? Well, that's what my contract says. So I'll be out the door on Halloween. So working backwards. So if you start in March, and let's say you take all of March and you craft a position, right? And everybody agrees on the position. And then you put together your search committee, and everybody, but the position gets crafted. And then you have 2 months that this position is out there, and you start the search. So that's, April, May. So now you're into June, right? And now you're bringing people on campus in June, and by July you have to make a decision. If you give people 2 months, August, September, they got to be here in October, right? That's kind of if you work backwards, which I've let them know. The one thing I can do is build a schedule backwards, especially for my replacement. I can build it backwards like there's no tomorrow. And I've said to anybody who will listen, you need to start this next week. You basically have to start crafting this position next week. I don't know how we'll look, if they'll hire a professional search firm. I don't know anything about that, how that works. David Tolchinsky, the dean of the media school, will have a hand in it. There will be people from radio and TV that will have a hand in it. There'll be people that will do it. There'll be folks from probably Jacobs will sit on there as well. So I will make my recommendations. I've already made my recommendations about hire local. Don't go out There's good people here. They know what they're doing. Trust them. They know what they're doing. Because what necessarily plays in Chicago or Austin or in New York or Houston or Champaign-Urbana doesn't necessarily play well in Bloomington. We're a really diverse community in South Central Indiana, and I think we have to recognize that as well. So, hi, Jim.
Hi. Speaking of South Central Indiana, can you describe your audience now, not just for the stations that we all listen to and watch, but also everything else that radio television services produces, and then maybe give us some sense of the trend during the 21st century on that audience?
Jeez, Pete. Wow.
And if you could cite everything.
Sure, let me, I will cite that and I'll get back to you. Well, damn, man, that's hard. Well, I'll tell you, growing up in South Central Indiana, I think the rural community gets dismissed for the campus. I think that, when I first came to work here, any mention of the county fair was like you stepped in something. It's like, oh man, I don't know out there, And so I think that a lot of our listeners and our viewers, they tend to skew towards the university, right? We tend to be, and that I have no data to back that up, other than I lived here for 60, minus 20, a big chunk of my life, and grew up in those counties, and recognize that that most people in the counties, depend on us for news, depend on us for safety, depend on us for weather, depend on us for the things that they do. I can't really speak of. There's people that love classical music out in the counties. There's people that love David Johnson out in the counties. I don't know. Amy, do you have any feel of it?
I think most public broadcasting stations seek to reflect their community, and so I've been here for almost 3 years. I moved here from Iowa, from where I was working with Iowa Public Radio, and so just in terms of the content, to have to switch over to classical music in the middle of we have 2 streams on radio. Oh, weird flex. But for this community, it really makes, that makes a ton of sense for the placement on the broadcast dial. In terms of your question about, viewership, linear broadcast viewership on not just public broadcasting, but all broadcasting is declining. And we, along with every other media organization, are trying to figure out how we grow our digital footprint to be able to remain relevant to those that we serve. We're looking at our bottom line is down positives on our impact and the community service that we're able to provide. So reaching generally younger audiences with a more digital presence is something, and I think television tends to be an older audience than radio on average. And so PBS Passport is a way where we do have a lot of younger, it's really people of all ages, but that's reaching a younger audience. And we have been growing some more of the digital projects at the station that the content is geared toward a younger audience too, like some more like pop culture, show is flyover culture. There's a music. Our morning edition host Lisa Robin Young is doing deep dives into what you call it, like why musicians are.
It's 6 degrees of separation. Bruno Mars was this week.
Yeah.
It was Lizzo last week. It's fascinating, and I think so. Those are the kind of things that are, but I think we can all agree that that we have a niche. We're niche broadcasting, and when you try to get out of that niche, people you're going to end up alienating people that are in that niche. So for instance, WGCL, when Keith had his radio show, right? And the people that called into that are not the people that are calling into Noon Edition with Bob, right? They got a bone to pick with somebody, and they're calling out people by name. That's really not the case. Different audiences, and I think we know our audience pretty well, but we need to figure out. It's a tough nut to crack. If we could say, well, to answer your question, here's the data and here's where we're going and things like that. So yeah.
So can you address similarly the news, because we all know that the newsroom was growing, and that has a strong digital presence too.
Mhm.
So how is the audience for that grown? Is it still growing?
Yeah, it's healthy. I mean, we are really, really healthy, and in our news department, I think pledging during the news hour, for instance, and we focus on our hyper local news that we do here. I think it pledges very well when we do our pledge drives. You know, the news hour in particular, when we take that 5 minutes out of the center. So I think those are great. But looking ahead, and this will be kind of a segue that, and you can ask me at the end, one of my initiatives, and it has nothing to do, it's not really radio and TVs, it's not really the media school, but it was an idea that I've been working on with the media school about working with AI and having assisted newsrooms with AI. And I've talked to you via email, I think, about this. And this is an initiative that really, I've been doing a lot of reading about this. And so I think in these rural deserts where there's no news or a very limited amount of news, what we would like to do is the limited resources that are located in these counties, being able to assist them with AI. And what does that mean? Are there robots rolling around asking questions? No. It would be the stuff that goes uncovered, the board meetings, the water board meetings, we don't have the school board meetings, and building a platform around that, using that, along with assisted humans, to take that content and to craft that into a platform using the backbone of Indiana public media, and cooperating that into South Central Indiana, into the 11 counties that we serve. And so I think there's a lot of legs with this. I think that the university has a lot of initiatives for this. I think there's some reach that we can do. There's some statewide, it's interesting, there's some statewide groups that are also kind of thinking about the same thing. They're having a little bit of trouble launching. I'm not very patient. I would like to see it yesterday, and I would hope that we could get something going and get some funding and get these things kind of up and going to cover these 11 counties, to see where we can go and to bring back those news, to kind of put water in those news deserts, to see where we are. And so Emily is working on a Hearst grant for students for rural reporting. And so we're just doing a lot of thinking. I contacted ROI, tried to get them excited. So hopefully this is something, but I think if we can build something that rides on the backbone of an establishment that's already well respected, and we can add more people, that's the way we can add more people. So, any other questions before Ian gives me the hook? Yeah.
Simple question, technical question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
You mentioned that you have 5 channels, is that right?
Uh-huh.
How does one access those additional channels?
Well, they're all through.
Let's talk.
Yeah. Well, you got to stand just so and hold a fork and no. It's all through traditional broadcasting on the point. So, yep, they're on there. What else? Would you say that was it? All right. All right.
All right. So thanks so much to Jay. If you filled out a paper survey, just leave it on the table and I'll get it if I haven't already. If you have cash or check for dues, Jim Bright is collecting those and delivering them to our treasurer. So otherwise, thanks for coming and we'll see you next time.
Oh, I would like to also offer
Yes.
the use of the media school for your meetings. If you'd like to have, we could find a room and we could have lunches there. That would, we would like to offer that too.
Well, let us talk.
Yeah. And we wouldn't charge you a thing.
Okay.
So,
All right.